Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome back. Game number 3 between WhiteRa and Naama. And WhiteRa is down right now 2-0. Naama has taken the first 2 games in this series between these 2 players. This time, of course, we are on Xel'Naga Caverns. And yes, this is Terran vs Protoss. WhiteRa over here in the upper right as our red Protoss. And at the bottom left, we do have Naama as the green Terran. So yes, game number 3 in this series between these 2 players. And man, I tell you, these last 2 games, we have seen Naama win due to all-ins. He has gone all-in the past 2 games, and it has been a little too much for WhiteRa to handle. And I do actually want to touch on that for one quick moment. I just want to talk about with you guys while, there's nothing going on, early stages of the game, yibbity-yabbity, whatever that means, but there's nothing to talk about. So let me talk about all-ins. Let me talk about Terran all-ins for a moment. Why they're so effective? Well, you have to realize that the main reason that all-ins are so effective as a Terran player against Protoss and against Zerg as well is because early game, during your all-in push, even like a somewhat later early game to mid-game push like we saw Naama do last game with tanks and Banshees as well, all of your units are ranged. So then essentially you get this huge buffer wall from all of your SCVs. And as a Protoss player, especially if you have a good handful of Zealots mixed in, your Zealots basically are rendered useless. They're completely ineffective. They do absolutely nothing for you. So it's so hard to deal with those Terran all-ins because they have this huge army of range units behind this giant SCV wall. All of your Zealots are completely useless, and then they can just keep pushing up that SCV wall along with their range units, and it's just very, very difficult and frustrating to deal with. And we saw last game, even though WhiteRa had Colossus into play with the Banshees and with the tanks there as well, it was just a little too much. So it's very frustrating, it's very infuriating as both a Protoss and a Terran player trying to deal with those SCV all-ins. I'm sorry, as a Protoss and a Zerg player trying to deal with those SCV all-ins from Terran, it's just a little bit too much to actually handle. But anyways, we do have this probe moving out right now for WhiteRa. He's going to actually be forced to shoot out of this base as soon as the Marine comes into play and taking a couple extra unnecessary shots there, but going to be pulling back. He didn't really lose much of anything though because he did maintain up to the last bit of his shield health, didn't actually lose any actual health, and that of course will all recharge. Take a look over here and see what WhiteRa is trying to do. Still no second gas right now. He's at about 23 supply and still just on the 1 gas. So not going to be going super tech heavy. Maybe seeing something like a 3-gate robo, maybe even a 3-gate expand. That's a possibility as well. He's got a lot of different options. Actually, SCV getting caught out of position. Wow, and losing that SCV to WhiteRa Zealot. That's quite unfortunate, I have to say. That was, again, one of those unnecessary missed micros. We do have the tech lab up and a factory coming out for Naama as well. So Naama looks like he is planning on teching up. Still just the 1 gas, so interested in seeing what he's doing. In fact, he's even coming down with a bunker. Now, why do we come down with bunkers early game? The main reason is that you're not going to be pumping out a lot of units early game for one reason or another. Either you're teching up or you're expanding. And seeing the fact that Naama is still on just the 1 gas, I'm expecting him to probably, in all honesty, be coming out with an Expo and using this bunker just to defend himself early game. Now, we can see that probe and the Zealot moving on across the board. 1 SCV getting a couple unnecessary shots there, and actually needs to be careful to not get engaged by that Stalker. But we are seeing some early aggression here from WhiteRa with this early probe, Zealot, and Stalker. But again, now that this bunker's up, I'm guessing that Naama is actually going to be quite okay. And here we go. We do have that Reaper moving straight across the board as well. So that's going to be trying to go right into the back of WhiteRa's base and try to do a little bit of damage. And here comes the attempted push. But as soon as WhiteRa sees that bunker, as expected, they're going to see him head on back. And there is that Expo. So there you have it, guys. Using the bunker to defend himself and going ahead and dropping an Expo. And then there comes that second refinery. But right now, here we go. We do have the 1 sentry moving on down. It has engaged there and actually going to be able to get this. Oh, man, getting the sentry as well. I think I called this a sentry. The Reaper taking out a probe and a sentry, so 2 kills for him, down to 3 HP, and it's time for him to actually head on out of there. Needs to be really careful to make sure he doesn't get anywhere near that Stalker because that will be 1 quick death for him. But there you have it, guys. Again, as I mentioned, if you're going for high tech early on, if you're going for a quick expansion, this bunker can pretty much be all that you really need to defend yourself. That looks really like in the shadows right now, doesn't it? I don't know what you guys think. Did the Stalker kill the Reaper? I think it did. What am I doing? I gotta pay attention to this game right now instead of talking about random crap. But no, it actually looks like this guy's like in the shade. Doesn't that look darker than normal? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just going crazy. But that looks really shaded on that side. Anyways, Commentary, yes, StarCraft 2, here we have a probe outside the base looking for that possible expo that will be coming out. WhiteRa, in fact, dropping an expo itself, about 50% of the way finished. We can see the command center has just finished. Going to spend that time to change that into an orbital command, though, before he floats it on over. What does WhiteRa have? He does have 4 gateways and a robotics facility coming out. Now, you might ask, why does he have 4 gates and a robo? Well, it's because that his expo is just about finished. He knows he's going to have those extra resources very shortly, and then he's going to be able to afford that. And actually, Hellion moving across the board, taking a couple of shots there from that Stalker. Going to be sending its way on out of there right now, and actually probably going to just want to move around, check for possible proxy pylons. One big thing that he really wants to check for, though, is this expo. Naama does want to get that Hellion over there to see if WhiteRa has expanded himself, or to see if he's still on one base. If he's still on one base, and he's going to be concerned about some big push, and actually that push would be coming right about now if it were even happening. So this would be probably scouting that as well. And Naama moves on in. He scouts the expo, sees the lack of a large army, just a relatively small army, and actually going to be sending its way on out of there, taking a couple, 3 shots from that Zealot, and that is not what he wanted to happen. He can still manage to kill the Zealot, but he needs to make sure he stays away from any Stalkers like that, and getting sandwiched from a second Stalker there as well, dropping down that Hellion. Here comes that expo for Naama, placing down 2 bunkers right here and a turret. The turret is going to be great for spotting any possible observers that may be moving on through. We can also see the siege tank up here on the high ground. Really liking this placement, kind of forming this wall off here in this direction, making it difficult for WhiteRa to actually push in on this area. And actually another turret up here, and this is going to be really sweet for spotting the observers. Observers likely move right across the middle, checking both your expo and the front of your main. That's where most Protoss players are going to send it. So if they're not paying attention basically 100% of the time, they could very easily use it. Needs to be careful, though, with Marines in the front, plus that 1 turret shot taking long. Actually going to be moving on in, but needs to be a little wary because we have this 1 turret, and there you go, shot right to the face, and see you later, observer. So again, nice placement by Naama, getting that observer pretty much no problem. And denying that scouting and that big waste of resources that is invested in getting that observer is a really big advantage for him. And ooh, here we go, War Prism. So going to be seeing some War Prism harass. Now we do, obviously here you can see we have that Twilight Council up. So probably going to be seeing some Blink Stalkers, possibly Charged Zealots, but I wouldn't expect those until we get Colossus in play, in all honesty. So I'm going to guess he's going with Blink Stalkers right now. There's that Robotics Bay. So maybe, nope, never mind. It's going to be the Blink. So there you have it. Now here we go, moving across the map right now with these 4 Zealots inside of the War Prism. We're likely going to be going for some sort of a drop in the economy, probably most likely in the main base, but no, Banshee moving across at the same time and gonna spot that. So Naama is now fully aware of the fact that that War Prism is moving across the map, and he's probably going to send some guys back, yes, as expected, but at the same time, obviously, WhiteRa saw the Banshee, so WhiteRa is going to be aware that this Banshee is coming. Banshee stopping for only a moment. Here comes that War Prism trying to move on in, and Marines are fully prepared for it. Going to be moving straight down, and yes, going to be shooing off that War Prism before it can do anything at all. And there we go, headed back to the Banshee, picking that up. We do have Cloak down right now, so here comes the Cloak moving into the resource line. He's going to try to do as much economic damage as possible, but getting completely spotted. There's an observer here somewhere. There it is. So yes, the observer spotting that and allowing those Stalkers to shoot up on it. And War Prism heading back home. So neither player's harass ended up being effective at all. We do have another Banshee trying to move across the map. We can see, like in this pro placement, would actually like to see that be a pylon, though. That would make a little more sense to me, because he could still catch that Banshee that was moving across the map, and then at the same time he would be able to warp in some units if necessary. Dropping the Cloak here where he knows there's no observer. Going to be taking a few shots, but I don't think he's going to be able to kill it, because here comes this observer right now. Going to need to be careful. Blink going down and actually taking a couple free shots there. Still has vision on the high ground, so he's able to shoot as soon as his blinks off cooldown. He's going to be going right up under it again. I think he's going to be able to get it, but no, the observer is too slow out of the vision, making it so he's not able to do that. And wow, War Prism moving right across that turret, and here we go, dropping in the resource line, but Tank shelling out damage on those Marines and actually going to be forcing them to be lifted back up. The War Prism needs to be careful, doesn't want to lose himself unnecessarily, pulling it to the back there. There's going to be some Marines moving on down here, and it's actually going to force that War Prism away. I think the War Prism should be okay. We have a few Stalkers moving on down here as well. And look at this WhiteRa getting up his 3rd right now. So WhiteRa moving into a 3rd, and actually looks like Naama does plan to do the same thing. So going to be seeing a macro heavy game from both these players here, and WhiteRa going to take advantage of these supply depots here, completely lonely and undefended, and actually going to be getting at least one of them, and maybe even a second. Do we have any units moving on down? Yes, we do. One Banshee, a few Marauders, and a bunch of Marines there, but I don't think it's going to happen before he actually drops this down. So there you go, Stimpack trying to go down. This is very, very low on HP. Is he going to be able to repair it in time? No, he does not. He instead tries to drop down another supply depot. Really surprised he didn't try to just repair that. I think that was a little unnecessary there from Naama. So anyways, WhiteRa's Expo is just about out, 50% of the way finished. Looks like Naama's going to get his Expo up first. He does want to make sure he gets rid of these rocks, though. I do like that, you know, these small victories. That's the thing you really got to pay attention to in this game. Small victories. Just get, you know, that one extra building, drop that extra depot, kill those 1 or 2 extra workers. As long as your opponent has more of a loss in whatever engagement happens than you do, then it's worth doing. Also, you want to make sure it doesn't mess up your macro incredibly. But at this high level of play, these players are very comfortable with their macro. They can pretty much do everything while they're still focused mainly away from their base, and it's going to be all about these small victories. Again, he had to force Naama to spend 200 resources to get 2 more depots just to be back to the position that he was prior to that attack, and he didn't lose any stalkers in that engagement either, so it's well worth the cost, basically, the cost in attention and effort, but not the actual resource cost, because again, WhiteRa didn't lose anything. So you can see Naama going to try to continue up this Banshee harass. It really hasn't been that effective so far, but he's trying to do something, and he's trying to do the same thing I just mentioned that WhiteRa's doing, the small victories, getting those 1 or 2 extra kills and then heading on out. Gonna be, there you go, killing that one probe is a perfect example, trying to kill off this pylon. Needs to be careful though, staying away from that cloak detection and that damage from that photon cannon, and trying to get those stalkers, but again, moving into cloak range, blink going down, but he's gonna try to take out that one. Does he get the one stalker? No, he does not. He's actually forced to push back right now. But here we go. Naama's going to be pushing out, and he, in fact, will be trying to take the high yield, so not going to be going for his natural third, pushing up a little bit further to the center of the map, and instead going to be going for that high yield. And the Banshees do get dropped there. The Observer comes into play, so this Banshee's no longer effective. A couple more, no longer alive. Obviously, when you're not alive, you're not effective. Couple of Colossus coming into play right now, and actually looks like WhiteRa is going to be feeling a little bold and getting ready to push across the map. He can't actually scout this Expo quite as of yet, just out of that range, but if he push forward just a little bit, he's going to see the fact that his opponent has Expo, and actually WhiteRa with the 3 Colossus is going to be headed over here. This very day, you do not very often you see Colossus moving across the map all by themselves, because they are very susceptible to any sort of basically sniping. A stim snipe from a bunch of Marauders, or even just these Banshees could take those down very quickly. Usually wants support units with those Colossus, so very surprised that he's actually doing this, but here you go, going up on the high ground and going to be doing a little bit of harass here with those Colossus. Again, just trying to stay out of the range, and here comes that Banshee realizing that he could take them on all by himself. Finally going to be meeting up with these Blink Stalkers, and he should actually be all set. And wow, look at this. WhiteRa is going to be expanding over here. This is not very likely. A lot of times you're going to see the player take this portion of the map because it's much more comfortable. It's much more along your arc of defense, basically. But having the base way over here may actually be a good idea because it's not expected. But WhiteRa going to be moving down. Realize he does have Blink Stalkers as well as Colossus. He could just walk right into the main of Naama. At the same time, this is very, very dangerous because he could lose all of these units if he gets sandwiched right now. But here we go, Blink going on in the main, going to start taking out some of these production buildings, trying to kill off that SCV that's building that command center there as well. At the same time, what are we going to see? A counter push coming out from Naama, so this is going to be a base trade. Holy heck, base trade going down right now. Here we go, Naama moving across the board, and WhiteRa demolishing all of the production buildings of Naama right now. Now again, realize we do have this one rogue base over here. This could actually come quite into play as this base trade continues to commence. I really have no way of telling right now who's going to win this game. WhiteRa is going to be losing quite a bit, trying to transfer some drones, some probes down to this Expo over here. And man, oh man, this is absolutely unbelievable. In fact, Naama even had this fusion corp, so was planning on getting some battle cruisers, but obviously that is no longer the case. Now again, realize Naama does have this base up here, and he's actually going to be going for an all, and he's pushing he's pushing his SCVs as well as an orbital command into the base here of WhiteRa. He's going to actually try to set up shop over here, but again, realize we do have WhiteRa's base over here now. Naama going to be losing everything in the main right now, and man, going to be lifting off whatever buildings he can and trying to fly them over. He wants to try to save as many of these as possible. WhiteRa losing all of his gateways, so WhiteRa is going to have to start to set up shop over here. He wants to try to get up his tech again, wants to try to start to rebuilding. Now Naama's in a really good spot right now. He's got a ton of resources, and even though WhiteRa does have this really large, very formidable force, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, and WhiteRa, realizing that this is a base trade, is just going to be scrambling around trying to take out whatever buildings he can. Taking a look back over here, again, Naama is going to be setting up shop over here. Where is this orbital going to be going? I would imagine it would actually be going at the Expo over here. Here comes the push, though, coming down from WhiteRa, and actually, no, going to be moving the orbital in the main base because he wants to set up his siege tanks on the high ground, making it a little bit more difficult for those Blink Stalkers as well as those Colossus to push up on him. And here we go, trying to walk into the siege line. Needs to be very, very careful. Actually going to be dropping down this barracks right now as it's floating right across all those Blink Stalkers. SCVs trying to move across the map. They're going to be running into those Colossus. Needs to be careful. Again, remember, WhiteRa does have this mining base. Now, the problem right now for Naama is actually setting up over here. He does not have a lot of resources to work with, But again, at the same time, look at this huge discrepancy between these two. Lots of floating resources for Naama, so he's got a lot to work with right off the bat, whereas WhiteRa, he has to basically build from scratch. Taking a look at the income tab, WhiteRa is the only one mining right now, but again, WhiteRa pretty much has to build from scrap. I don't think he's got some gateways down there. He's got that Twilight Council down there, coming down with the Cybernex core as well, so we can get something other than Zealots into play. Going to be trying to poke and prod with these Colossus, as long as he cannot lose any of them and pull back whenever he gets low. Just taking that shield damage is fine, and just trying to kind of whittle down the army here of Naama. Now we do have a photon cannon over here, so this is a nice small little defense, stopping stopping Naama from doing much of anything with that. One Viking flying around, so going to be able to do some scouting with that. WhiteRa is just going to be using this one Stalker to take out the rest of these buildings. He wants to try to get all these depots. That would definitely be very wise of him. Try to move down and get the depots over here as well. So there we go. Yes, going to be trying to take down all of that supply there that Naama has sitting inside of his main base and his natural, and that's going to put him in a much better spot. We do have a Cloak Banshee moving on forward, and does he have an Observer? Yes, he does, so he's going to be quite fine here. Spotting that Expo, though. Now Naama at least knows where WhiteRa is. Now let's take a look really quickly at that army tab. WhiteRa, big advantage right now. 103 army supply as opposed to the 55 of Naama. But Naama's going to be burning through these resources as he works his way back up. I'm expecting almost, yes, he's just going to remote mine from over here. And this could be really dangerous, actually. If we got the Colossus, like, set up shop right over here, take a couple shots at these SCVs, very quickly they could take them out. And here we go. WhiteRa's, in fact, going to be pushing out and trying to do that. Remember, WhiteRa's at a tremendous advantage right now. But even at this 107 army supply as opposed to the 53 of Naama, he still does not want to push up on this. He doesn't want to walk into the siege tanks. He doesn't want to walk into these bunkers or these turrets either. That's just taking unnecessary losses right now. And especially now, after a base trade at this point in the game, it's so hard to replenish your forces that unnecessary losses is not something that you want to have happen. Now we can see that Dark Shrine is up and in play. Yes, it is. So we're going to be seeing, well, we're going to be seeing some DT at some point. Now, I really want to see WhiteRa start to get up some more gateways. Obviously, he's doing what he can for mining, and this is a really tough situation for WhiteRa, in all honesty. Moving forward, though, some Blink Stalkers going to be taking a few free shots here at these SCVs, then blinking away from the forces there of Naama. Now, with Blink Stalkers, WhiteRa has a tremendous opportunity to place down a lot of harassment and lay a lot of hurt down, basically, on Naama. But again, I keep going back to this, but Naama with those floating resources, it's going to allow him to rebuild once he gets those production buildings up and running again. He's got a lot of siege tanks right now. You can see right now coming out with 3 starports here, man. So going to be switching maybe just to go with the mass heavy Banshees. I wouldn't be too surprised if he tried, but I don't know, maybe. Actually, I'm pretty interested to see. Does he have a fusion core? No, obviously not. He lost the fusion core that he did have. I'm really interested to see what he's planning on doing. I don't expect mass Vikings just because there aren't a ton of Colossus into play and there are a lot of Blink Stalkers, but getting a few Vikings wouldn't be the worst of things. And actually moving forward, going to try to take out that tank, but again, needs to be careful. Doesn't want to take too much splash. EMP is going down. Nearly all of the shields of that Protoss army are gone, so he's going to want to push back right now. But he's doing a good job. WhiteRa basically forcing Naama to stay inside of this base and not allowing him to push out and do any remote mining there. And again, WhiteRa does have this Expo coming up right now, so once he gets that up and he gets that running as well, WhiteRa is going to be in a very comfortable spot at that point. Starports are finished. Tech labs have been laid down, and let's take a gander as to what we're going to be seeing here. Is it going to be Mass Banshee? Yes, it is. So we're going to be seeing Mass Banshee. Okay, it's possible it could work, but where's that observer? I thought we had an observer. There it is. So WhiteRa does still have that observer. So, I mean, keep that in mind. With this observer and those Blink Stalkers, Banshees aren't going to be that effective. It's really going to come down to this engagement. I think if WhiteRa just sits here and tries to continue up this contain, Naama realizes that he has to push out. He needs to do something, basically, to try to break this contain, because if he doesn't, then he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Taking one shot, but actually not even killing a single Marine there in that small little engagement. We do have that Templar Archives out right now for WhiteRa, so WhiteRa just trying to rebuild. Naama trying to break this contain, and he's going to actually rely, like we just saw, on the Cloak Banshees. So that advantage that Naama did have in the fact that he had all those extra floating resources, I'm no longer sure that that's the case, that he necessarily has that advantage, because WhiteRa, again, doing a phenomenal job of just containing, sitting back here with the Colossus. Again, as long as he just doesn't walk into that tank line, he's going to be A-okay as far as I'm concerned. But no, Banshees moving into the Mining Expo, and this is something that I had not thought of there, and that is very dangerous because his observer is nowhere near here, so he's going to have to pull back with his forces, and the second he pulls back, that is, of course, going to allow Naama to push out. He needs to be very careful with those Colossus. Yes, he does have this observer, but that's not going to protect him against those Banshees if they do come into play and try to hit that. So yes, the mining had been stopped over here. We do really need another observer. We have a robo base, so I really want to see another observer come out from WhiteRa. He does have 2 in play. Does he have? Okay, so now finally he has one over here. So this base should be safe now. He should be okay to mine from here. But Stalker's walking right across the siege line. Oh, that was a big blunder. Very dangerous situation. We are going to see a big push right now from Naama. Naama's still only at 67 supply, and actually he is just moving out of his base to try to get up this Expo. EMP going down on those Templar. Not very nice at all. Some very nice sniping on those Colossus. In fact, I don't know, maybe he didn't lose one. I thought he had lost maybe one, but those Cloak Banshees proving to be very effective indeed. WhiteRa still sitting over here, so it's going to be a little while until Naama can expand over there. He'd have to take out that cannon as well as that cannon up there. Naama just going to be moving on over into this base, and Naama does have quite a bit of production up, pretty much all starports. He's going to be pretty much going with mass Cloak Banshees here. That's all I really expect from him. WhiteRa trying to continue to push out, knowing the fact right now that Naama has in fact left his base. Again, those small victories. Even at this point in the game, even after a huge base trade and everything that's happened so far, it's all about the small victories. Take those 1 or 2 extra shots, get that extra kill wherever you can, and that's going to help your cause in the long run. Very interesting game, guys, so far. I really have no idea how this one's going to play out. WhiteRa has been at an army advantage for quite some time. Taking a look at that resource gather, WhiteRa had a giant advantage here as well, so WhiteRa looking to be in a commanding position. He is deciding to push in right now, deciding he wants to try to end this right now. Needs to be very careful of taking heavy losses from that siege line. We do have those Banshees up there and doing quite a bit of damage, my gosh. But no, look at that nice storm going down, a Blink moving down, getting right up under those Cloak Banshees as well. Does he still have that observe over here? I don't actually see it, so he may not be able to see those Cloak Banshees. Luckily right now there's only 1 Cloak Banshee left, and Naama going to be losing like all of his SCVs right here. Not very good at all. Stalkers, there is that observer finally going to be taking off the rest of these Banshees, and Naama not looking good right now, only with 12 supply, and there is the GG from Naama. So there you have it, guys. What a game indeed. Unbelievable. Huge base trade between these two players, and even though Naama did have that economical advantage when that base trade took place, and he had that opportunity to pump out a ton of things, ton of units and production buildings because he had all those floating resources, WhiteRa was able to contain him, and WhiteRa was actually able to get a second mining base up as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this anyways, and as always, if you like the commentary, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and remember guys, keep watching and keep owning.